Hello, I'm John Grom, and welcome to our 70th Right and Left Discussion Forum. We hold our panel discussion twice monthly to demonstrate that one of the best ways to learn is to listen to the opinions of others with an open mind. Today, our panel will discuss the criteria that we use for selecting our political leaders, particularly the President of the United States. Today's panel, beginning on my left, is Patty Haskins, retired math teacher and current member of the Wadsworth City Council. On her left is Bryan Laubaugh, president of R&B Financial Services and the first gentleman of Wadsworth. On his left is Dr. Ronald Chamberlin, retired senior research chemist. And on his left is a new panelist for us, sitting in for Jerry Ritzman today, is Lynn Slaby. Lynn is a former Summit County prosecutor, judge on the 19th District Court of Appeals, member of the House of Representatives in Ohio, and the current member of the Ohio Public Utilities Commission. Patty, I hope you did your homework on this topic. So my question to you is, as citizens of a self-governed democracy, we have the right to cast our votes for president using whatever criteria we choose. What do you think a responsible citizen should consider when selecting someone for the most powerful office in the world?
I think that, before you make conditions on what you look at, you have to consider what the job entails, and that's one of the things we need to look at. We are choosing the leader of the free world, so obviously we want someone
Are we still using that term?
Oh, absolutely.
The free world.
Yeah.
Okay, that assumes that some part of the world is captive.
I would agree with that,
okay,
actually.
All right.
So,
pardon the interruption.
No problem. So we want someone with good leadership skills, someone that can get people to work with them, someone that can lead people in the correct direction, or someone that can bring about consensus when working with others. Our president is to be commander-in-chief, so we want someone who will have correct military strategies, and if not a military commander themselves, will surround themselves with those that understand military strategies when dealing in a war, when dealing in peace as well. We have to look for someone that is going to be appointing possibly Supreme Court judges and will make cabinet appointments, which will greatly influence the way commerce is run in the country, the way that our military is run through our Department of Defense, our Department of State. I mentioned the Supreme Court judges. I think this is extremely important. Now, once we examine all those qualities, we then have to look, I think, at the candidate and look, first of all, at their background. What do they stand for? Where do they intend to go? What are their various positions? Unfortunately, today, I think too many times when we listen to presidential campaigns, we hear little sound bites, and it's the little catchy slogan that people grab on to, make America great again, that type of thing. And we're not looking at
just to pick one at random.
Just to pick one at random. I think because that one has really been used quite effectively. But we need to look at the substance of what those people are saying and what their particular plans are, whether it be an income tax plan. It's really nice to say that you're going to have this great income tax plan that's going to save everybody money, but we need to know details on it. Mm-hmm. What is it going to entail? Is there going to be enough money to provide all of the services that our country needs? It's really nice to say that we're going to give free college to everybody and that we're going to provide all of these necessary things that are free. Mm-hmm. But who's going to pay for it? Mm-hmm. And you need to look into the details as to who is going to pay for it. You like that one, don't you, Bryan? Yeah. When it comes out, it's going to be a few $1 trillion. It's not
$63 trillion.
$63 trillion.
Well, that's a few.
Yes, that's not going to be covered by the 1%ers. We won't have 1%ers left if that is done. So you need to delve into what they stand for. You have to also, I think, look at issues that are important to you. I don't think you'll ever find a candidate that has every quality that you want as the perfect candidate. There are some cases, though. For example, I was in education for years, and I remember speaking with fellow teachers at various election times. And for most people, education and union positions are not their primary consideration. As teachers, the only person that's going to look out for your interests are yourself. So you have to train an eye to those candidates that are particularly helpful for you. I think that voters need to be informed. They need to get their sources from various groups. Do not just listen to Fox News. Do not just listen to MSNBC. Look at all of the news channels. Read the newspapers. I think you'll find, and even when we go beyond the federal level, when we look at local elections, if you look at your local newspapers, in many cases they provide very detailed explanations of, for example, issues that are on the ballot, giving both pros and cons. Becoming the more informed voter makes you the better voter. Unfortunately, some people look at the D or the R and say, that's it, I must agree with them. Or they look at how good the person looks. It's often been said that President Kennedy won the election partially because of the way Richard Nixon looked in the debates. That he looked rather pale as opposed to that ruddy, handsome man.
People that only heard the debate on the radio thought Nixon won.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Do not look for the most charming person. The most charming person may not be the brightest person or the person that's able to hammer out a deal. And finally, I think you need to look for someone that is going to be able to play well with others. They have to be able to work with all sides. They have to deal with all different cultures. And we don't need someone, I believe, I'm going to disenfranchise this group, and this group. I don't like you, I don't like you. You have to work in this economy, in this world, with all types of people, whether it be simply in the House of Representatives or in the Senate, or whether it be on a national level dealing with foreign countries.
Bryan, I'm sure you don't have a response back there, Patty, that would be negative, but there's nothing that she said you could disagree with.
I love Patty more and more each day. I struggle to find anything in there that she said that I would disagree with. I agree 100% that we have to find individuals that will surround themselves with good people. The example that we've been living through for the last 8 years is exactly the opposite of the type of person we need as a president. There's very little that anybody can point to, and I think history will judge our current president as, a failure when it comes on a lot of different things.
A couple of us would disagree about that.
And I think when Patty lays out her criteria, I don't think you can check a box for our current president in any one of those areas when it talks about working well with others, when it talks about building a consensus, when it talks about not labeling the opposition as an enemy and clinging to their Bibles and their guns. It doesn't help. When you look at race relations in this country, they're at an all-time low. And that starts at the bully pulpit. I would dare say if we went back to a John F. Kennedy, that type of individual, he wouldn't even know what's going on right now with the two candidates that the Democrats have put up. Bernie Sanders, really? When we do those and check those boxes, I think we really need to look at the individual and their background and what they're bringing to the table. I'm not enthused about many of the candidates that are out there. I think we've sort of pigeonholed them into the news cycle. And that, as far as I'm concerned, it's very hard to get your message out when they're only looking for the slogans, make America great, or income inequality, and the little 10-second, 15-second blurbs that you get. And I don't think it does anybody any good. And that's the state of affairs that we find ourselves in.
Do you think that we can blame the media for classifying the Republican candidates as establishment and outsiders?
Yeah, that's really come to the forefront in this last go-around. And it's unfortunate because everybody on that stage, other than maybe the Donald would be considered establishment. They're all in the political class. Bernie Sanders, has he ever held a job outside of government? Hillary Clinton, has she ever held a job? Maybe she was a junior lawyer early on in her career, but career politicians, and the list goes right down from, I struggle with that when people start saying, oh, he's establishment, he's not a real conservative. Well, who's defining the word conservative, and who's going to define the word socialist? So there are good people out there, and the point that I'd like to make is, because we've entered into this politics of self-destruction and destroying, personal destruction, because we're destroying people, good men and women don't run.
It's a sport.
It's a sport, and it gets ugly. And yeah, politics is a messy business. You know, I've been involved in local politics for many, many years, and it can get a little rough around the edges.
Absolutely.
But what we're seeing now is just destroying people.
Are you talking about local now when you say
No, I'm
that?
talking about on a state and federal level, a national level. People are just destroyed. And who wants to do that? Who wants to put their family at risk? So,
Ron?
You look at photographs of presidents pre-campaign or pre-election and after, and oh boy.
Yeah.
I don't know why anybody would want the job. Well, John, as always, you have a provocative subject, and I'm taking a little different tack on that. It gave me a chance for a little self-introspection. And thinking about, what do I look for? Well, I look for things for candidates that reinforce or that agree in some extent with my personal philosophy. As you know, I'm personally a pacifist, not necessarily on the national level, so I want a candidate who's a little less hawkish than some, who at least will, before taking us to war, will try to very carefully look at all the alternatives, all the diplomacies, all the negotiations and everything, to try to prevent this as much as possible. I'm a scientist. I look for someone who has at least a basic knowledge of scientific understanding on such issues as homosexuality or climate change or whatever it might have you, or drilling or fracking or pipelines. I need someone to understand or be advised, to accept the advice of their scientific advisors about that sort of thing. So, and all that kind of thing, I would not necessarily have to agree with everything that this candidate stands for, and never do. But I find that I give most weight to those factors in that candidate which follow what I do. Now, what they do and how we think about it is certainly going to be reflected by our own particular stance. Bryan, you look for different things than I do. But, and how that outcome occurs is going to have a big influence, of course. But I find that most of us, and myself particularly, just don't pay too much attention to things outside my own sphere of interest. Oh, maybe enlightened self-interest is what we're looking for here in a democracy.
Well, you are a Renaissance man.
Well,
Part of it. Lynn, where are you coming from on this topic?
Well, I think I agree with just about everything everybody said here. I think, from my perspective, the most important thing when you're looking at a candidate is not only their present qualifications and their ability, analyze their ability to lead, but how do you find that out? So I think the biggest thing I'd like to point out and stress is do your homework. And doing your homework to try to find out really what the candidate is doing or is going to do, notwithstanding what's being said in the soundbite, is to look into their background. Fortunately, we have some age restrictions on the presidential candidate, so you know that they're going to have a significant background of some nature. See how, if they were a governor, which some are, or were, look into what they actually did or accomplished during their term in their previous offices, if they in fact were elected offices. You also can look into the backgrounds of the individuals that never held office before to find out exactly how they managed what they had, how they managed their responsibilities in their particular profession. I think you can tell a lot from looking at a person's background, whether they're going to be able to fulfill their promises that they make to the public, as well as to know a little bit more about that individual. Are they have they always been held to the highest esteem and responsibility, their moral character as well as their ability to manage whatever, because they are going to be managing a huge responsibility, as we all know. And have they demonstrated in the past that they were able to bring good people around them? I can tell you from having served in various capacities that it wasn't me. I was the figurehead, and hopefully I was able to bring some people, good people around me, in the prosecutor's office, the Court of Appeals, even in the House of Representatives, my LA meeting and joining as I was chairman of the Criminal Justice Committee, knowing we have an outstanding staff on the PUCO that I keep relying on them not to lead me astray. So it's extremely important to know that a good manager is able to manage the people that he or she's going to bring around them. So I think it's important to just do a lot of homework in selecting a candidate.
After having spent a little over 40 years as an executive recruiter or headhunter, I'll accept that title. Excuse me. One of the things that most headhunters complain about their clients is that they always want to hire people they like rather than people they need and make excuses for the difference.
That's true.
It seems to me that as voters, we do the same thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we turn down some outstanding looking people.
You know, I think, and people are frightened of certain things. I mean, you know, I think Adlai Stevenson, they said he was too smart to be elected, and because he came across that way as the academic, as opposed to the Mr. Nice Guy. You know, we talk about the presidential election, though, and I think it's as important that we look at the other elections, and it's important to be an informed voter for all levels of government, because if you can have the best president in the world, but if the states are run by those that perhaps have completely different views or perhaps even are incompetent, if members of the Senate and the House of Representatives are not quality people, you're not going to be able to run the country efficiently. One of my biggest pet peeves would be the judgeships, because I think when most people go to vote, they have no idea who the judges are. And they're supposedly nonpartisan races, but everybody knows which particular party belongs to that judgeship. But I know far too many people who cast votes for judges and have no idea of any information about those people. And you know, I really feel what other more important position is there in our government and within our culture, and we should be looking at those positions at least with a little bit of information.
Well, let me jump in if I can.
Sure.
I'm going to let you handle that one.
Yeah, I was hoping you would.
No, I agree with Patty. To this extent, unfortunately, very little is known about the background of the judiciary. Either they're appointed to start or they've been in some other political office and then ultimately end up in the judiciary. And fortunately or unfortunately, however you might view it, it's a lot of name game.
Very much so. Brown.
And if you look at the outcomes at the end of an election or after an election where there are several judges on the ballot, you'll see that there's a 25 to 30% drop-off rate from the top of the ticket. 25 to 30% less votes cast for the judiciary than are cast for either the governor or
People
whatever.
just leave it blank.
They just leave it
Because
blank.
they have no idea.
Yeah, they have no idea, don't want to make a mistake, which is good on the one hand, but on the other hand, that it does open the door for the name, quote, the name game. It's unfortunate that in certain respect, in campaigning as a judicial candidate, you are very restrictive in what you can say and what you can disclose. So you sort of have to look. It's even more important from my perspective that you look into the background of the individual and what they've done and what they've accomplished prior to running as a judicial candidate.
Maybe you would have an answer to this question. Do you think that we are becoming less partisan as voters? Are there more independents, more moderates, or is it the other way?
Well, I'm going to guess that statistically, there's more folks that are in the middle than on the extreme outliers, I'll say. Unfortunately, it's the old adage that the squeaky wheel gets the oil, and those on the liar areas are the ones that speak up and are heard, and the more moderate individual candidates just aren't heard that strongly. And we have a lot of focus on single issue voters these days, and in my opinion, that's unfortunate, because we end up with some people that, it's my way or the highway type of attitude, and we're not getting the cooperation between across the aisle that I think we should have.
One of the things that I always had first in mind in starting a search for an executive, if they didn't pass the test of being smart, honest, and hardworking, we didn't even go any further with the candidacy. Would that be a litmus test for all four of you? Smart, hardworking, and honest.
First is smart.
Yeah. I think if you put hardworking and smart, if you ordered those, because there are a lot of smart people that aren't hard workers. They fall back on their God-given ability to outsmart people, and they don't bring in other people. They don't work to have a consensus. Judge Slaby brought up that he brought people together, and those people won't work for somebody that's just the show horse. And unfortunately, we've sort of taken that turn that a lot of times politicians are really just sort of a show horse, and you really want to look at the type of people they're going to bring, and that team building. I haven't heard anything about a cabinet recently in the 8 years that our current president's been. I mean, I couldn't even name the people that are in his cabinet. Okay, we got John Kerry, and you can throw Hillary in there too. But the point is that you have to be able to have people that want to work with you and have that type of personality, hard work, smarts, dependability, trustworthy. Those are some of the things that I think you look at in an individual. So.
Lynn mentioned single-issue voters. Let me ask you this: as voters, how willing are you to vote for a candidate that is the opposite of you on an issue that you care about, as long as everything else is positive?
I've done it.
Yeah.
Have you?
In Ohio, you have to vote in the primary with the way you're set up, but I have changed my affiliation from time to time in order to vote for somebody that I.
You're one of those, huh?
Absolutely. I've done it. Well, on the Senate level, or in the state level, I've done that on a couple of occasions.
I did that one time. I think William Saxby was running for something. I can't even remember what it was.
I did for Howard Metzenbaum. I recall that one.
No.
So I think we have to keep that kind of open mind. Most of us aren't capable of that.
In the last few years, we've had a lot of discussion about the religious affiliation of the current president. Is he a Muslim? Is he a Christian? And you mentioned somebody mentioned Kennedy.
I did.
And that as a former Catholic, I was very sensitive to the conversation about his candidacy back then. Does religion matter to you in a candidate?
No.
Would you vote for a Buddhist?
If I felt they were the most qualified for the job. I think what's more important is that they're ethical. And I'm not sure that it being a particular religion determines whether you are ethical or not.
I talked with Cesar Carino once about that. Actually, he came to our Mennonite church and gave a sermon, and says, he's a Catholic in a non-Catholic area, or a non-Catholic world, a lot of Catholics in Wadsworth, of course. Yeah. And he pointed out how he allows his religion certainly informs his morality and his character, and he applies that to his job. He was mayor at the time. He applies that to his job, but does not allow it to limit him in carrying out of his duties. If there's something in his religion that absolutely forbids what you do, he still looked at what seemed to be best for the community for under his job. And I would look for any person who professes his religion to act the same way. Buddhist, Muslim, it doesn't matter to me.
Well, we had an experience with Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney and I share the same beliefs, and I would quickly point out that so does Harry Reid.
Yes.
And so I think within my religious affiliation with our church and being a member of that church, I think that if that person is a good person, if he's a Muslim, a Catholic, a Protestant, I don't have an issue with it. It was unfortunate that some things started to bubble up that were totally out of the realm with Mr. Romney. I thought he would have made a good president. But once again, it's just where we're at with politics.
Would you tolerate an atheist?
Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, that was quick.
Well, technically, religion should be not ruling the way they
Yeah.
govern.
As long as they didn't wear it on their sleeve.
Right,
Yeah.
but that would be true for whether atheist or
That's correct.
Catholic,
Yeah.
Lutheran, whatever.
Yeah.
What about, one more question here. We've only got a few seconds left. In fact, we don't have enough seconds left to even answer this question, but it had to do with being tolerant of racial issues. But anyway, thank you for a very good conversation. Pardon me for that. Okay. I'm going to end this with a quote from Matt Tavey. Matt is a political journalist. Matt said that to be robbed by a fiendish underground conspiracy or by earthly agents of Satan is at least a romantic sort of plight. It suggests a grand Hollywood-ready confrontation between good and evil. But to be coldly ripped off by a bunch of bloodless second-rate schmoes that you chose, you elected, is not something anyone would take a great deal of pleasure in bragging about. Thank you so much.